If there was one thing that most people would love to bury forever, it would be the fear of truth. And most people are so afraid of its reality that they live their entire lives running away from it. This is because, for many, truth feels like a knife sliding beneath the skin of everything they thought you knew. But you know what's funny? People don't run from lies. You see, we tell ourselves that we want to know, that we seek answers, but the deeper reality is that as a culture, as a species, we fear truth more than we fear death, because death is a conclusion. Truth is the beginning, a disorienting, painful beginning that demands we shed not just ignorance, but identity. To understand our fear of truth, we have to first understand what truth does. Truth disintegrates illusions. It fractures comfort. It makes it impossible to go back to the person you were before you saw it. That's not a metaphor. That's neurobiology. When we encounter information that threatens our core beliefs, our brain responds as if it's under a physical attack. The amygdala, the same part of the brain that activates during threats to our safety, flares up. Heart rate increases. Cortisol floods the system. It's fight or flight, not because the truth is violent, but because it threatens the scaffolding we've built our lives upon. And society is designed to protect that scaffolding. Think about it. What are children taught first? Not how to think, but what to think. Memorization over reflection, recitation over reason. Our early education systems prioritize obedience, not inquiry, conformity, not contradiction. Why? Because truth, when unfiltered, becomes socially volatile. It questions the teacher. It threatens the tradition. It asks, why are we doing this? And most systems, be they religious, political, or economic, don't like that question, because that question, left unanswered, can burn empires to the ground. The philosopher Ernest Becker argued that much of human behavior is an attempt to manage terror, specifically the terror of mortality and meaninglessness. In his Pulitzer-winning book, The Denial of Death, he posited that our cultures, our nations, even our faiths, are elaborate defense mechanisms against the chaos of truth. Think about that for a moment. The things we cherish most might be, at least in part, lies we told ourselves to not fall apart. Truth, at its deepest level, asks us to confront the possibility that life is fragile, uncertain, and not as noble as we hoped. It tells us that justice may not prevail, that power often wins, that suffering is not always meaningful, and that terrifies us. So what do? We cling to what feels familiar. Narratives, myths. We surround ourselves with echo chambers that reinforce what we already believe. We praise curiosity until it challenges us. Then we mock it or exile it. Truth becomes a threat, not because it's false, but because it doesn't fit the collective story. It scares away the comforting beliefs you already have. In George Orwell's 1984, truth is manipulated until it becomes meaningless. War is peace, freedom is slavery, ignorance is strength. It's dystopian, yes, but also eerily familiar. Because we do this in quieter ways. We rename war as intervention. We call exploitation growth. We repackage loneliness as independence. Language becomes the cloak that hides reality, and we wear it willingly. Why? Because real truth doesn't sound like a slogan. It sounds like silence, like grief, like the unraveling of everything we trusted. Take climate change. The data is there. The models are clear. Yet billions still live as though infinite growth on a finite planet is possible. Not because we don't know the truth, but because the implications of fully accepting it are too overwhelming. It would require us to change how we live, what we value, and perhaps, most painfully, admit that we've been wrong. We fear truth not because it's abstract, but because it demands a cost. It asks us to sacrifice comfort, and that is a sacrifice most people will not make unless their world is already burning. So why look? Why risk the loneliness, the rejection, the pain? Because something in you refuses to pretend. because even if truth costs you everything, it's still worth more than the lie. There is a quiet nobility in the one who sees clearly, feels deeply, and still chooses to remain awake. That's not weakness, that's strength of the highest order. The Stoics call it amor fati, the love of one's fate, not resignation but affirmation, the willingness to embrace the reality, however brutal, because it is real. To love the truth is to love the world not for what it promises, but for what it is, messy, incomplete, imperfect, but still somehow beautiful. And here's the paradox. The deeper your love for truth, the deeper your capacity to suffer, and also to love. Because when you stop hiding behind illusion, you begin to see. Not just the darkness, but the light. Not just what's broken, but what's possible. There's a reason why ancient spiritual traditions, from Buddhism to mystic Christianity, speak of truth as a kind of death. Not of the body, but of the ego, the false self, the narrative we've clung to. Truth dismantles the false so that something real can emerge. But that emergence isn't loud, it's quiet. It comes in solitude, in stillness, in the slow realization that you no longer need to be right, you just need to be real. You no longer fear the truth because you've made peace with what it reveals. You've stopped trying to control the world and started trying to understand it. You may lose your place in the crowd, but you gain something deeper, the unshakable freedom of someone who sees with open eyes and lives with an open heart. So if you've felt the cost of truth, if it's made you lonely, anxious, or unsure of where you belong, this is your reminder. You're not broken. You're simply one of the few willing to look. You are part of a quiet lineage, a thread of souls who chose awareness over anesthesia. And though the path is narrow, it is not empty. Others have walked it before you. Others walk it now. And one day, you may be the light that helps another take their first step out of the illusion. That is the quiet revolution of the truth seeker. Truth is not the enemy, it's the invitation. Not to control, but to surrender. Not to dominate, but to understand. Not to escape life, but to finally live it, fully awake. So keep asking, keep seeing, even when it hurts, especially when it hurts, because what lies on the other side of that fear is not despair, it's depth. This is depth. Subscribe to Depth, where we don't chase trends, we follow truth.